So if you need to build a system, I'm not talking about a graphics card. If you need to build a system, I would do it immediately. And welcome to Broken Silicon, a gaming hardware podcast. This episode is brought to you by Micro Center and their November savings event. Check back at the links in the description throughout the month regularly to see updating sales events that will change throughout the month. And then it is also brought to you by JLC PCB. Check the links in the description to get the best prices on their products. I am your host, Spooky Tom, and today I am joined by my co-host,
Post Spooky Dan.
Post Spooky. You know, it's funny. Me and my girlfriend actually did carve pumpkins this weekend, but we did it like 3 hours ago. Like, we were so exhausted.
Better late than never.
By the year, and we've been especially busy in the past couple of weeks that we were thinking of like rushing it Halloween night, and we're like, no, we're tired. And then we just did it this Sunday, and I went, yeah, whatever. That was great. It doesn't matter. Time? Now we have the pumpkins out, and maybe they'll survive to Thanksgiving. Probably not even now that it's colder.
I think I don't remember how long it takes. They rot in like 5 days, I think. So,
well, I'll tell you what.
Once all of their guts are exposed to the elements, they're going to be all like oxidized in a few days. So,
well, I'll tell you what. When we've carved them like a week before Halloween, yeah, we throw them out the day after in Nashville because sometimes it's 70 degrees on Halloween, but it is actually 40 degrees today. So okay. Although I do think it's going to hit 70 a couple of days next week. So I mean, yeah, it'll be gone then. But nonetheless, I'm glad that we didn't force it and we just did it when we wanted to. And it was no less fun. We listened to the Lore podcast while carving to get in the extra spooky mood 2 days after Halloween is already over. But you know, at least we're not celebrating Christmas already. I will say, like a day before Halloween, we already saw some people walking around with Santa hats on, and we're like, what is happening, people?
I think part of the problem too is like you and I also like Thanksgiving, so it's like doubly offensive to us.
Yeah, I think it might be my favorite holiday.
Yeah, Christmas is definitely the GOAT holiday when you're a kid, but like, I don't know, as I get older, Thanksgiving gets more enjoyable.
Right, because it's really Christmas without any stress, because there are people, well, at least in our family, it always has been. There's like less worry about anything. I understand some families, like one of our best friends, Thanksgiving was when everyone freaks out about because they have trouble cooking or something. We've always been pretty effortless cookers in our family, so it's always been pretty goddamn relaxed. Not to mention, I'll say our birthdays are both in November, so like
mine, to drop another piece of Dan lore.
Oh wow! Speaking of lore,
my birthday is on Thanksgiving this year, Tom.
That's right, and some more Dan lore. Typically it would
we end up driving for some reason.
That was always the joke, because of course we would go up to Minnesota where most of our family lives, and then we would drive back after Thanksgiving every fall, and it would almost always be the day we're driving home is Dan's birthday.
Yeah, or just something happens and we end up driving for some reason.
I just remember like we were crossing, I think once from the Minnesota to the Wisconsin border one time, like through that pretty mountain range for anyone who lives in that area if you're driving from Minnesota to Illinois. And I just have this memory of me when I was, I think, 12 or 13, and you 8 or 9. And you were just like, my parents went, "Hey, Danny, that's right, it's your birthday today." Like turning around from the driver passenger seat to you behind them in the van, just going, "Happy birthday, Dan." And you just being like a 9-year-old going, "Yay." We're driving for 6 hours. Woo. But not this year. This year you'll be having turkey, which is much preferable to just drive.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, so our birthdays are around there anyways, and so it's like kind of is Christmas anyways for us. I mean, there's less presents, but there's just as good of a feast and everyone's more relaxed. So, but right in below with what your favorite holiday is. And if you think we're completely Joker brain for liking, I would say liking Thanksgiving more than Christmas, but I don't know. I think it is my favorite holiday.
Probably not that uncommon.
I don't know if I'd use the word liking. Yeah, I'll say it. You know what? Put me in the asylum. I like it more. That's what I look forward to the most.
Make it a Folly Ado, our favorite movie.
Well, yeah. Why do we reveal Joker Part 2 is our favorite movie? Don't worry, people. It isn't. I actually haven't even seen it because I've only heard bad things. Have you seen it, Dan? No. We'll see. To me, that's one of those movies where eventually it'll be like, I'll be on an airplane
and watch it at some point and be like, "Yep, that was pretty bad."
Yeah, I'll like be on
with my life.
For me, that's an end of airplane movie. Like I've already it's a 4-hour flight. I've already watched 1 or 2 movies and there's like an hour left. And then it's like, what if I skip through Joker Part 2 and confirm if I think it was bad? And that sounds like that type of a movie for me. Yeah. Very exciting stuff in a gaming hardware podcast. Let us now move on to corrections. The Forbidden Juice writes in and says, for Dan, when speaking about establishing U.S.-based rare earth metal extraction, the term is rare earth deposits or mines. Wells is more of a fluid resource term. I'm sure that's what he was thinking of. So in the last Die Shrink, we talked about rare earth minerals and supply chains. And Dan, I think you owe everybody an apology.
So sometimes I'm a little bit slow to think of a word. So I just say the word that conveys the idea to move on with it. And I think that's what happened there. What do I know that mines or deposits is probably a better term than wells? Sure. But did you know what I was talking about? I think so.
Yes. Speaking of someone who usually knows what we're talking about, yet still issues a correction. Although this one here is an actually very worthwhile one. Not to say that any of the other ones weren't Carbon Cry, but he writes in and he says, on the rare earth issue, the EU and the US already have significant rare earth deposits. This is contrary to what a lot of people think based on what they see in the news, especially in old tin mines. These rare earths are found in mining waste that has been sitting for decades. Much of this material is already partially processed, making it easier and faster to reprocess as well. We're using surviving mining infrastructure at those sites. The West could build reprocessing plants within a year if there's political will. Once reprocessing facilities are built, it becomes economically viable to reopen those old mines nearby too. So the West really isn't dependent on China for rare earths as much as people think they are, as China is on us for high-tech products like EUV and chips, at least from a long-term perspective. I thought that was an interesting point, and I don't know if this really should have been a correction, Carbon Cry, although I thought it was good to put in here because we're often talking about this as it relates to the chips that you would use to make gaming hardware as well. But I do think this is a misconception, and we need all of this rare earth when we really could get it from Western countries, including the US, if we wanted to. And in fact, you have examples of the Netherlands discovering massive repositories, I believe, of the rare earths used to make lithium batteries or whatever as well. So I mean, I don't know, Dan, if you have anything to add to this.
No, I think while I was talking about it, I had seen that rare earth minerals, despite be not their name, a lot of the way really aren't that rare. But I didn't want to double down and say it's a homogeneous distribution on Earth or something. So I wasn't sure what the distribution was, but not shocked to hear that there are deposits. A little surprised to hear we might be able to get them up in a year, but he does caveat that with if there's the political will, which God knows if there is ever political will to do anything in the U.S. So,
and if there is, what on earth it will be for? We will see.
Oh yeah, we will spend political capital on stupid things. Don't worry. But
don't worry, we'll find a way.
Yeah.
All right, let us move on then to story number 1. Speaking of things that are rare, these are becoming rarer. If it's DDR5. DDR5 prices surge. Quoting first from Tom's Hardware before moving on to the write-up. According to DigiTimes, major U.S. and Chinese hyperscalers are now receiving just 70% of the server DRAM that they order. That's despite agreeing to contract price increases of up to 50% for quarter 4, well above the 30% price hike many buyers had budgeted for earlier this year. The rest of the market, though, is faring even worse. Channel players and smaller OEMs are seeing order fulfillment rates closer to 35 to 40%. Jeez. With hyperscalers locking in fixed allocations, lower priority customers are pushed to the spot market or told to wait until capacity opens up in 2026. So, yep, the AI boom has claimed another victim, memory. Alongside high-end GPUs, DRAM is turning into the new unobtainium for gamers, although I'd say, actually, we'll get to this. High-end GPUs you can actually get right now. We'll see if that's true in a month for some of them, though. It says, but why now? When AI data centers have been expanding for years, why would DRAM prices be skyrocketing specifically at this moment compared to earlier? Well, there's a few reasons. First of all, Samsung and Micron are ramping up HBM hard right now after getting to a competitive level just recently. You see, Samsung used to have bad yields, and Micron was late to starting HBM production. Both of them have sorted through this issue. And this matters because, remember, HBM is stacked RAM. So using these chips in a stacked way means that you could be using an entire DIMM stick's worth of RAM per stack, but then that brings in worse yields as sometimes it doesn't work out and you have to throw it away, meaning that there is more waste than making DRAM sticks. So every wafer going to HBM means a lot less left for classic DDR5. Second, normal data centers, not AI, demand might be waking up. It dropped during COVID and stayed suppressed while budgets poured into AI infrastructure, but at some point, traditional server upgrades are going to have to rebound and go through an upgrade cycle, and it seems like they're mostly deciding to do that right now. Third, AI build out. Yeah, okay, we'll bring it up. AI is building out like crazy, and the money behind it is enormous. To lock in those plans, the backbone of their stock market story, companies like OpenAI and Oracle are incentivized to buy up as many components as possible as soon as possible. It's not just AI chips. CPU DRAM fits that bill as well. AI systems don't mind using CPU memory that's a year or two old in slower speeds, and so storage costs pretty low right now. You might as well just buy up all RAM you can so that there's no surprise shortages in the future. If you get a bunch of Nvidia chips, you don't want to then have the bottleneck be we ran out of DRAM. So they're just stockpiling that in warehouses apparently. And fourth, look, tariffs are hitting a lot of things right now. Just like we warned you all in Q2 of this year, the tariff price increases are mostly going to be felt and are now being felt in the second half and near the end of the year. We're there. Prices are going up from that as well. So meanwhile, by the way, DDR4 is also spiking for different reasons. The big three have stopped making DDR4, leaving Nanya as the lone volume supplier, and they're a tiny company. On the bright side, Chinese CXMT, which is roughly 2/3 the size of Micron, so they're large, is ramping DDR5 right now, including high-speed 16 gigabit LPDDR5X, and they are stuck on HBM2, so LPDDR5 is the best use of their capacity. And let me also just add at the end of this here, I'm not going to put any quotes on screen, but over the past really month, I've had numerous distributor sources and retail sources reach out to me and tell me that, RAM prices are going to continue to skyrocket for some time, and that even high-end motherboard prices are starting to go up as well. So if you need to build a system, I'm not talking about a graphics card, if you need to build a system, I would do it immediately. In fact, I just ordered some RAM for a benchmarking system I'm going to have to the side here as I realized, I have a motherboard on the way. I better get that RAM like right now. And I think I got it for a fair price, but I think if I wait one more week, it wouldn't have been. So, yep. I don't know. Again, we warned you guys prices would be low in the summer and be especially high. I mean, they're often high in the holiday season, but we thought they would be especially high this holiday. Seems to be coming true. We'll talk about other components possibly going up in price soon, but for now, let's stick with DDR5. Dan, what do you think?
Well, we talk about AI all the time now, and we love AI, and I'm glad that it's having all of these positive effects on the market. I definitely like more expensive RAM because this exists and is doing so much for me, like making Facebook unusable.
Yeah.
And also, Tom, I think the most important question, though, will all our graphics cards use HBM finally because they're ramping up HBM production?
You're, of course, trolling that it seems like every third episode there's a reader mail submission or a few comments, honestly, in the YouTube comments that says, when are we going to get HBM graphics cards again? Even less of a chance now.
Damn it.
And we've been saying for a while, yeah, I don't think HBM's coming to gaming graphics cards for a long time, if ever again. I mean, and by say ever again, just because who knows, maybe there'd be some other tech we'll be using by the time that would make any sense to use. So
Yeah. Yeah,
I
that
don't know
that
that.
that needs to be busy using all of the energy in Tucson, Arizona, or something. So
But yeah, so I don't know if there's that much more to add. Frankly, I feel a little silly for not warning people sooner. I mean, I tend to focus on the graphics card, the CPU, maybe macro level business side. I usually don't track SSD or RAM prices, but I know that matters to a lot of people. And I was warned by someone actually in East Asia, I don't know, 3 weeks ago. He's like, hey, by the way, RAM prices are about to skyrocket. I'm just warning you.
yeah, I mean,
And so
especially
maybe I
if
should have warned you all, but now I am here to tell you, I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon based on anyone I've talked to in the industry.
it's unfortunate because yeah, RAM prices are interesting to like. I don't know how you comment on them a lot of the time because RAM prices do kind of just bounce up and down a ton, like
They
way
do.
more than every other component. But
But this seems particularly bad.
yeah, if they're gonna stay inflated for a while, yeah, I guess by now, I guess I won't be because I upgraded mine a while ago. But I don't know, and I think 64 gigs is enough, but we'll see. If you have 16 gigs of RAM, still definitely upgrade. If you have 32, maybe upgrade.
Yeah, and I don't know how much more there really is to add to this. We got to the gist of the information. We gave you our advice on what you should do. The only other thing I can think to bring up is something that came up in the last Die Shrink episode, which I will plug one more time. If you want to join the Patreon, at the $2 tier, you can get access to that immediately. Where we go into all different sorts of things, including like consoles, I believe, and how like RAM could affect them or not. I believe that comes up in one of the recent ones. And I say that because I'm sure there's some people who didn't listen to that Die Shrink that are thinking right now, well, what does this mean for the next generation consoles? Tom, you talked about how the PS6 handheld might, have 36 or at least 24 gigabytes of RAM. Does this affect that? And my answer is no, because I think by 2027, the situation may be different.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not, at a minimum, what you would say is Sony has not made some decision. Xbox has not made some decision about the amount of RAM they're going to put into their consoles. They make that decision in the last like 16 months, maybe even the last like 10 months, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know that this really affects anything except, yeah, I mean, even when it comes to AT3 and AT4 low-end RDNA 5 graphics cards, I guess if this continues until then, we might see less high-end, and AMD just spit out a ton of LPDDR5X graphics cards with those 256 and 384-bit buses you can, of course, read about or watch in the recent leaks I put out. But otherwise, not much else to say. RAM prices are going up. We don't think it will get better until, I don't know. I mean, like the write-up said, there is a company spending out more stuff. I don't think they'll get better until mid next year.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been warned. All right. Now let us move on to story number 2. RTX 5090 effectively end of life to leak came out last week. And then also we're just going to combine that with a general GPU sales and supply update. All right. In the October loose ends, we updated our information from retail sources. The main thing being information about the 5090, the most powerful gaming GPU available, and also an underperforming behemoth despite being the most powerful. But anyways, if you want this thing, if you need it, get it now. And I did see on Micro Center there were some in stock at MSRP. I do not think that's going to be the case for a long time, or maybe ever again, as it will soon have heavily throttled supply. Now, note, I choose my words carefully. I said effectively end of life for a reason. You're going to be able to get a 5090 next year. It's just might be $2,500, $3,000, $3,500. I was told directly by sources, and again, I leaked this in the last live stream that came out last week, that basically they know of at least at one major international retailer, a couple more shipments of 5090s coming. They have no idea when more will come, and they've been directly told that you shouldn't expect a lot of supply moving forward, is that's all being kind of redirected to AI. I would put that past another retailer, this one a major US retailer. The person told me, yes, we've also been warned the 90 series supply is going to be severely constrained moving forward. And for anyone who would doubt this will happen, Nvidia did literally the same thing with the 4090 about a year after it came out. Like they, like right before the Super series was coming out, they then said, okay, we've got something coming that will be closer to the 4090. It turned out the 4080 Super really wasn't much closer. It's a huge disappointment. I think the 5080 Super will be better in that regard, especially because it should have 24 gigabytes of RAM. But yeah, look, if you want one, get it now. Because I think it's only going to be harder and harder to get it next year, especially with how much RAM it has, by the way. All right.
True.
Second, in terms of supply updates, Nvidia is also supplying less and less 8 gigabyte graphics cards. Yes, I know this is something that we've seen pop up in the headlines, but it's getting even worse. And I think that's a good thing largely, but the reason is very simple. Nobody is buying them. Seriously, my sources this weekend told me about horrible interest in these products, and publicly available sales charts back this up. I actually prepared these for Gerard to show on screen. Like if you look at the sales of the best selling graphics cards on US Newegg, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top best sellers are AMD graphics cards. None of them in the top 10 on Newegg right now are less than 12 gigabytes, and most of them are 16. So, and then if I go to what else do I have here? Amazon, was it 4 out of the top? What do I have? 11, because a bracket was one of the 12. 4 out of the top 11 are AMD. Again, you do not see, I believe, any 8 gigabyte graphics cards on Amazon either. You go to Overclockers UK, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 out of the top 10 are AMD. 2 are actually Intel. 1 is Nvidia, and it is a 3060 12 gigabyte. So that's in the UK. Again, there was one 8 gigabyte card, the 6600. That makes some sense to me, is that thing's dirt cheap now. And then I looked even randomly at Amazon France, and I saw in the top 8, 3 AMD, only 1 card with less than 12 gigabytes of RAM. Oddly, the 3050 6 gigabyte, whatever. But the point
how much
is
that selling for? Like
182 euro. So I don't think that's a stellar price, but maybe for that region, it's okay. If you add tax on top of it, no, that's not very good. I don't know. Nvidia is more popular, I believe, in France than AMD relative to America, but still, even in France, though, top 3 out of the top 8 are still AMD. And I think that's an important thing to point out here, is that AMD is selling well globally compared to Nvidia and do it yourself right now, and 8 gigabyte cards are falling apart. To put one more little interesting note on this 8 gigabyte section, I am told that the 9060 XT 8 gigabyte, it's not having its supply throttled as much by AMD, but that's because apparently they already throttled it heavily months ago, as they expected it to not sell very well. They just happened to already produce some, basically, and they had to sell them. What's interesting about Nvidia is Nvidia seemed to gamble that people would still buy 8 gigabyte cards, because that kind of happened last generation, especially with the 12 gigabyte 4070. The 4070 didn't sell. I know that's a 12 gigabyte, still didn't sell well. Over time, it sold very well at $500. I think they thought the bad reviews would come out again, just like with the 4000 series. And then a few months later, everyone would forget, and the 8 gigabyte cards would keep selling. Apparently, that hasn't happened this time. 5060 Ti 8 gigabyte sales have fallen apart, and I'm told 5060 8 gigabyte sales are also not rebounding like the 4060 did. So that tells you the 8 gigabyte stink has sunk in, and Nvidia is apparently very disappointed with how the 5060 non-Ti has performed. Just to complete this here, though, also, I guess a final supply update thing is that Intel is phasing out everything basically pre-Arrow Lake. And so if you want a budget Alder Lake or Raptor Lake CPU, this is your last chance to get it. And so just to re-summarize everything that you can expect this holiday season moving forward, number 1, the 5090 is going to start being harder and harder to get at MSRP. And by Q1, it's probably going to be perpetually above MSRP, just like what happened to the 4090. And that's when they will launch the Super Series and hope you don't want the 90 class anymore. Meanwhile, Radeon continues to push for GPU market share successfully with RDNA 4, at least in do-it-yourself. And I'm told that RDNA 4 supply remains consistently better and more consistent than NVIDIA. So if you want a 9070 XT, you shouldn't be as pressured to get it, right away. Like that, it's doing well, and you should expect it to start being closer and closer to MSRP. I don't know if it'll go below MSRP, but it's what you're seeing now is probably going to remain. NVIDIA, NVIDIA's not supplying a lot of gaming graphics cards. And then finally, again, if you want a pre-Arrow Lake Intel's budget CPU, they're about to not be able. They're about to be phased out finally. So that is the supply update. 5090 pretty much going away. Nvidia not caring about gamers. 8 GB cards failed, and AMD is going to continue to supply a ton of their popular 16 GB cards. Dan, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess it's fortuitous given the prior story that good timing for Nvidia. They're getting rid of 5090 sales at this point, or I don't know.
Well, remember, that's in favor
of
of making like 64 GB AI cards. So actually, I don't think that helps now that I think about it.
But also, I don't know. I feel like I guess I don't know how sales were for the 5090, but at least public perception for it was kind of a more of a dud this time around than the other 90 series they've released recently, because
it absolutely was.
Just didn't meet performance expectations.
To give you some insight, this was actually coming from the source in East Asia. This person told me a couple months ago, maybe it was during the summer, that like they saw the 5090 getting closer and closer to MSRP, and it got to the point where the 5090 only cost 20% more than the 4090, and like in Vietnam specifically. And it's like, and I saw that in Western markets as well, largely. If you think about it, isn't this card supposed to be 40% faster? If you game in 8K, which I know no one does, but there are some scenarios where it's 50% faster, and yet people were not putting any premium on it because Blackwell just had stink on it. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, so I don't know, the 5090, I wouldn't be shocked if it has less of a lifespan. I mean, it already started out hobbling, so yeah, end of lifing it, or soft end of lifing it.
They're not end of lifing it, but
yeah, I don't know what
so
you
much
call
room
that.
in the title. I would just say heavily
supply.
Throttling supply, like not a focus.
That makes sense, and I like other parts or other things that they can do with those parts that make a 5090 are going to make them more money. So why put all of this work into a 5090? And then as far as like the 8 GB sales falling, I mean, I'm glad to see that. I was just gonna say, like, while you were summarizing, like, there's only so many times you can like make that bet and it fails, because eventually 8 GB is truly going to become too little. And I think like
even for 1080p,
yeah, like I think people have been talking about this for honestly the past couple generations, that 8 GB.
I've been talking about it since the 3070 came out.
Yeah, that 8 GB is getting a little long in the tooth, and like it was showing signs already
5 years ago, half a decade ago.
Yeah, but you could mostly get by with Ampere, and then like even if it was already showing signs that it was 8 GB is going to be an issue, then Lovelace was starting to have some issues with it, I think, but 1080p, I think for most games it was fine. And I mean, I guess to be fair, 1080p is still quote unquote fine for most games, but it is really, really showing its age now. And I really don't think I would recommend like an 8 GB card for anyone, or less than a 12 GB card for anyone, unless it's like you really just need to get a cheap graphics card to throw in your system. The problem is that's not really what any of the 8 GB offerings are from Nvidia this generation, or like the 5060.
Like none of them are like $150.
Yeah.
So, like if you're going to spend $250 for a 5050, you don't want to spend an extra $100. You have $250, but you can't save up $100 more to get a 9060 XT 16 GB that will be remarkably faster and run higher settings. It's just silly.
Yeah, it's just like that's the realm of like why maybe, what did you say, the 3060 was still, or 3050 or 60?
3060. 3060 12. Oh yeah, in France, sure.
Yeah,
that's one.
Maybe that's why, if it's cheap enough, sure, I get why people would still get that, or like a 6600 XT. Like you just need a card that can like run somewhat old games in 1080p, or you want a PC that can play video games. Like, okay, sure, get a 6600 XT. That's the realm of like 8 GB cards in my mind now.
But again, only if they're below 200, because
yeah,
and even then it's like you're just gonna get so much better performance from a 9060 XT. It's silly. So why would you be bothering with any of these 8 GB buckets of crap? But yeah,
maybe 6600 XT is a bad example right now, because I just looked in, that thing is still selling for $250. So don't get that.
6600, Dan, is mostly supply at this point, to be fair. But yeah, I mean it's interesting. the only final thing I would say is this is noteworthy, people. Seeing AMD, I mean, we reported on this a while ago. I think it was like 7 or 8, or I think at one point AMD was the top 9 best-selling graphics cards on Amazon or Newegg, maybe both from one time to another in the US. And even this far into the generation, we're almost done with the first year of RDNA 5 and RTX 5000. AMD remains on Newegg in the US the 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 of the top 10 best-selling GPUs in America. This is a company that is way smaller than Nvidia. This RDNA 4 is quite a success, is what I'm saying. And when people say it is like, guys, I'm sorry, it doesn't matter what sales data you look at. It just, the Steam hardware survey is obviously nonsense, and I don't know where anyone gets like the 4%, 6% crap. Like, it is obviously not true. Now, I don't know, laptop pre-builts, whatever. At least into it yourself. Obviously, AMD is taking market share from Nvidia, and that's why they're preparing the Super Series. Otherwise, they wouldn't. They did it the 3000 because they didn't need to. But yeah, there you go. There's your updates on what you should look out for when you're doing your holiday tech shopping this quarter. And by the way, if you're doing that, you might want to do it at our first sponsor, Micro Center.
Whoa.
This piece of content is brought to you by Micro Center, and actually they're doing a savings event all November long. Specifically, I've actually been told to tell you all that they will be updating new special sales basically every few days on their website. So go to the links in the description and make sure you come back to this podcast every now and then if you're interested in the latest deals at Micro Center, and there might be a new sale through that link, again, every few days. Additionally, in terms of specific sales, I mean, I plug this on the loose ends. I find it funny when I try to give you a reason why you'd want to go to Micro Center, because they are just almost always the best price. But for example, right now there's the 9800 X3D for $440. It's like 10% off MSRP. And then on top of that, you can get a motherboard and for like $100 with it, and then that comes with 32 gigabytes of free RAM. It's like a bundle where you go from just having the CPU to like spending an extra $100, and then you get the B650 Extreme motherboard and 32 gigabytes of RAM with it. I mean, for almost the price of the CPU by itself at other locations, you're getting the entire platform. At least as of recording, you can still get 32 gigabytes of RAM for free despite the shortages. So I would go there right now and get this if you want to build a system this holiday season, like we've told you should. Do it here, because I've already seen RAM prices start to skyrocket on Amazon as well. Additionally, they have a new location opening at Phoenix. If you're in that area, you can get a free 128 gigabyte USB flash drive. And then, of course, there's a link there for Micro Center News. Again, they'll be updated throughout the month. So, as always, Dan, me and you are always so excited. I will say your face doesn't tell me, or now your face tells me you're at least a bit excited. We are always very excited to have Micro Center as a sponsor because of these great deals. So show them some support for supporting our channel as well. Check out Micro Center through the links below today. All right, let us now move on to, oh boy, this was the controversy of the week. Let me tell you, people.
Can we put an air horn in for that new controversy of the week?
Please no. But let me see here. Story number 3, AMD puts RDNA 1 and 2 into maintenance mode. All right, I'm going to read 2 quotes here, or a few quotes here, and then I will get into the editorialization. The first one comes from AMD's driver 25.10.2 release notes, where they specifically said, new game support and expanded Vulkan extension support is available to Radeon 7000 and 9000 series graphics products. That's what it said in the release notes. Note it said 7000 and 9000. Then, from PC, quoting PC Games Hardware, when asked by PC Games Hardware about potential upcoming legacy support and the end of new features for GPUs prior to RDNA 3, based on what we read in their latest release notes, AMD responded to us that RDNA 1 and RDNA 2 graphics cards will continue to receive driver updates for critical security and bug fixes. To focus on optimizing and delivering new and improved technologies for the latest GPUs, though, AMD Software Adrenaline 25.10.2 puts Radeon RX 5000 and 6000 series graphics cards into maintenance mode. Future driver updates with targeted game optimizations will focus on RDNA 3 and 4. Now quoting from Tom's Hardware, New features and bug fixes and game optimizations will continue to be delivered as requested by market needs in the maintenance mode branch. This was after the controversy started, where AMD said that maintenance mode will still include day one optimizations as needed. So, yes, and a great year for Radeon, as we just covered in the previous story. AMD's marketing was clearly worried that they had missed their quota for embarrassing gaffes and stupid decisions. And boy, did they finally step it up this time to meet the quota. It all started with, like we said, a note in the last driver changelog stating that game support is available to RX 7000 and 9000 series, but that did not list 5 or 6000. A German publication then reacted and received a disastrous reply from AMD stating that RDNA 1 and 2 are in maintenance mode. Even the later clarification made to Tom's Hardware was confusing and vague, and this caused a ton of outrage. Articles and videos started saying that AMD is abandoning previous gen customers already. Some people said this is illegal. Don't know if that's true. So what do we make of this? Well, however, this is not that weird what's going on. What's weird is how AMD decided to talk about it. RDNA 1 and 2 have gotten similarly long full support as Vega or Polaris. Remember, RDNA 1 is from 6 years ago, 2 from 5 years ago. Most importantly, AMD will still ensure that new games run. There will still be day one drivers for RDNA 2. In fact, RDNA 2 and 1 will still use the same driver download as 3 and 4. You use the same install. It's not getting legacy driver support. And they even still say they'll expect to do game-ready specific optimizations for more performance on them when it calls for it. That said, per game optimizations in an architecture this old, an architecture that has been getting specific optimizations to the driver package every month for years, rarely needs as many day one optimizations as a newer architecture needs. All that said, buyers should be and will remember this next time they upgrade, and this is a significant PR blow for AMD. I don't understand how mistakes like this keep happening there. But again, I just want to be clear. They will still have patches for day one support for RDNA 2 and 1. They will still do day one optimizations for these architectures when they need them. Basically, it seems like they just won't always need them as often because they've been getting optimizations in their drivers for 5 or more years. Go on, Dan. What do you think?
Obviously, I think this story is mostly a nothing burger. I mean, it's a bit unfortunate because I think it's suggestive that like they won't get newer features like some.
I think it's pretty clear they're not
FSR4, which I wasn't
for
expecting.
RDNA 2, yeah.
Which I wasn't expecting, but always cross your fingers. But yeah, other than that, this feels like mostly a nothing burger with the caveat that like if people are skeptical of whatever AMD is saying in their public statements right now, I understand why. This is if the way we're interpreting this story is correct, this is a mostly nothing burger of a story to me. It's just another example of AMD not knowing how to talk for some reason. Like, I don't know. Like, when they said we were going into maintenance mode, did they just, like, whoever said that, did they not run that by anyone? Or be like, hey, do you think people might take this the wrong way if we say put this in maintenance mode? Because obviously people would take that the wrong way. And I get why people were like... I get why you would read between the lines there and think, oh, AMD is going into legacy mode with RDNA 1 and 2. Which, if that's not the case, whatever, AMD, learn how to talk.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I want to be clear. We're not calling anyone that attacked AMD stupid. The way AMD said this sounds like they said they are switching to legacy drivers for RDNA 1 and 2. So we're not attacking anyone for saying that. What we are saying, though, is from what we can tell doing our research today, Sunday, November 2nd, because I didn't really pay that much attention to this because I took more time off this week to prepare for a Halloween thing I was doing. And it was like, but I did talk about it on the loose ends a bit. I did cover it to a degree, so if anyone's wondering why we weren't outraged, it's because we just kind of waited for the dust to settle before we said anything. But once that dust has settled, from what me and you can tell, Dan, they could have said nothing and no one would have noticed anything. It would have still had the same driver patches that driver downloads that RDNA 4 gets. It would have still had day one game ready drivers the way RDNA 4 does. And it's just how the sausage is made. They probably would have spent less time optimizing it. Hopefully, now they're probably going to have to clarify this more because everyone's freaked out, because you don't do as much
for older hardware
optimizations for drivers that have been optimized for 6 years, if it's RDNA 1.
Yeah, it just seems like a nothing story that blew up because AMD does not know how to communicate. Good job, AMD.
Yeah. Again, my big takeaway would be this further cements, I would argue, though, that FSR 4 is not coming to RDNA 2 in any official capacity, which I think we basically put a nail in that coffin last news episode. But it seems very, very clear now to me, that that's going on. But I didn't really think they would do it. So, yeah, I mean, look, does this mean you need to sell your RDNA 2 card? No. But your RDNA 2 card might be 5 years old by now. So, or at least 4, probably, depending on when you got it. So if you want a new card, they're getting cheaper, and they have FSR 4 support. RDNA 2 won't. But I don't think you're going to find out RDNA 2 is getting legacy drivers in a month or something. It's just, again, if AMD would have just not said something weird and not worded something weird in the driver release, I don't think anyone would notice. And I don't mean that in a nefarious way. I mean, I think the games would have kept working and running as expected, and the RDNA 2 cards would have benchmarked fine relative to their successors. I honestly.
And obviously, if the story does keep developing and this is AMD soft putting it into legacy mode, screw that too. But that's a story for a month from now, I think.
I will say that. I will say, though, that now I wonder if this is going to make them change the wording and actually do more work than they might even need to, just to cover for the fact that now they kind of have to come out and say RDNA 2 will get full driver support for everything for the next 5 years.
Or somebody has to open up a thesaurus and be like, we're not switching to legacy mode. We're switching to heirloom mode. that does sound more fancy. These are heirloom graphics. Heritage mode.
Heritage mode, yes.
No, I don't have the legacy page on thesaurus.com open right now. Not all of these feel like synonyms. Gift? Is gift a legacy? I don't feel like that's a synonym.
Yeah, but legacy can be a gift. You can't see this as a legacy.
I guess that's true. Okay, sure.
But I think on that note, that's the signal that we should definitely move on to the next story.
That I'm reading from a thesaurus.
Is this good content, guys? I don't know. You tell us. With story number 4, N1X, N1X, first half of 2026 release timeframe leaked. A week ago, we also leaked a bevy of CPU news, including some from Nvidia. We have finally received, at Moore's Law is Dead, solid confirmation that the long-awaited N1X and N1 laptop APUs will launch by the first quarter of 2026, quite likely at CES alongside laptops. We were also told that Nvidia might launch some desktop chips as well. These will likely be mini PCs, though. We don't expect actual motherboards with socketed chips, although I guess there's nothing stopping minis for them from. I guess there's nothing stopping Asus from launching a Nvidia
Tottered
CPU
motherboard or something.
Yeah, that has room to add a graphics card. Yeah, that'd be tricky if it doesn't run well, though. Would you really want that if you're Nvidia? But we'll see. I guess we can't rule that out, though. Thus, the long saga of Nvidia's entry into the ARM laptop space seems to be nearing its destination. Of course, we leaked this project already in late 2024, and we knew Nvidia had devices to show for CES 2025 before changing their minds, besides the Project Digits Skunkworks project they eventually showed off this year. There seems to have been significant issues with those chips, though, with GB10 Linux-only APUs still having many bugs in the just-released Spark. Heck, even John Carmack has taken to Twitter to publicly bash NVIDIA's DGX Spark APU due to a bevy of issues, including less performance than expected and hitting 100-watt limitations, despite the system claiming it can go to 240 watts. Hopefully, NVIDIA will have all of this fixed soon, given that these laptops will be running Windows on ARM, not Linux. So there you go. I mean, all of it seems to be coming together that, no, this... they wanted to announce a laptop family like earlier this year. Then rumors kept coming, and I even leaked pictures of them in test labs. Like, like, are we close? Could it be Q3, Q4? Then we heard Q1. It sounds like it will be the first half of next year with it. I actually leaked that it should be an Alienware laptop that launches in March, or I guess I won't say the specific month, but should launch in the first quarter of next year and then roll out with other OEMs afterwards. But yeah, I don't think it's just because they want to sell Spark AI desktop mini PCs, although I'm sure they're enjoying selling those. I think Micro Center said they're back in stock for $4,000. Hell yeah, would they rather sell a mini PC with no screen on it for $4,000, calling it an AI PC, than sell a laptop for $2,000 or less? But I don't think it's just that. I think genuinely, like, they can't get it working well enough for a client consumer system customer, in Windows, to not have a bunch of bugs. But it's coming, and apparently there will be some desktop form of it. Dan, what do you think?
It's getting to that point where with their CPU release, where I just I don't know how much more there is to say about it until it's actually out there for me, and I'm just excited for the saga to be over and the official CPU or / SoC to actually be out there, so we can comment more on performance.
Yeah, and what else is there to say? To my memory, the specs of it are basically kind of similar to an RTX 5070 or 4070 or something. And of course, it uses slower RAM. We'll have to see how that pans out. But
I mean, if CPU performance on that is good, I'd be very excited to see mini PCs with that thing.
Yeah, or again, just solid Halo competitor laptops.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really curious to see ARM on Windows with Nvidia. It would be hilarious if it actually did work well, and that it
was just Qualcomm.
Yeah, that was the issue. And Nvidia and Jensen being smart enough to go, yeah, we're going to launch this a year later than we wanted to, because it has to be perfect. The first in all Nvidia laptops cannot have issues. We're not going to pull an Alchemist, especially because they just saw Intel destroy the entire ARC name with a bad release that they really either shouldn't have released or just should have delayed it, even if they sell it at a loss, because you do not have the first product you release in a product line be a disaster in terms of reliability.
Yeah, especially with a company like Nvidia that could really harm their brand. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad they're waiting if they really aren't ready for the light of day.
This piece of content is brought to you by JLC PCB. JLC PCB supports a wide range of PCB materials, including traditional FR4, aluminum, and copper core boards. But beyond these, JLC also specializes in flexible PCBs, offering enhanced versatility for modern electronics. But that's not all. In addition to classic yellow, black, and white PCB substrates, they now provide transparent PCBs that gives a sleek, futuristic design for electronics that want to ditch bulky enclosures and embrace a more transparent circuit board as their foundation. Truly, whether it is EDA software, PCB layout, manufacturing or assembly, or 3D printing, CNC machining, and mechatronic parts, JLC PCB accelerates global hardware innovation. If you want to get any of these products and support Moore's Law is Dead, check out the link in the description to get easy, affordable, and reliable PCB manufacturing. And you can even get a $10 coupon for a Flex PCB right now. So support Moore's Law is Dead by supporting JLC PCB today. AI Generated Fish writes in and says, does the announcement of x86 SoCs with NVIDIA GPU chiplets at x86 Intel specifically show that NVIDIA is less than totally confident in their laptop SoCs? ARM on laptop for mainstream gaming always seemed like an uphill battle to me. I just think they're when it comes to NVIDIA making chiplets for Intel, despite also making their own fully NVIDIA APUs for Windows systems, I think it's business is business. Sony sells Blu-ray players to Microsoft for Xbox. Why wouldn't you? And yeah, I mean, look, they know that long term, like an Intel x86 CPU chiplet's probably going to be better than what they can design in the short term. Maybe not long term, but why put all of your eggs in one basket? And also, again,
and why leave
Blu-ray players in an Xbox? Why not?
Why leave money on the table if it will be a lucrative deal? Like, I remember there being not a ton of like discussion over this because it was obvious, but like back in the day, maybe it was like server blades for Nvidia having like being paired with Epic CPUs, and some people are like they would do that, and like yeah, why wouldn't they? I don't know. If it'll make money, it'll make money.
Well, and a final note I'd actually want to add to this is you've got to, if you're Nvidia and you're looking at Intel's Arc team like on the knife's edge of just basically being completely done. And while you're not worried about Arc in the midterm, at least long term, I don't know if anyone remembers like 2018 through 2020 or whatever, or 2019 or whatever. There were a lot of articles, like I think maybe it was even before that. There's articles with like semi-accurate talking about how Intel is going to become a monopoly and push Nvidia out of laptop by like removing PCIe lanes once they have their own Arc APUs that are powerful. Like there was this whole, it had to have been before that. I think it was like maybe 2016 or 17. Like that didn't happen. People I talked to said that was kind of silly to think it could happen that easily. But Nvidia took that seriously. I heard from people at Nvidia that didn't know, like a decade ago, they were worried with Intel making integrated graphics with like Ivy Bridge and Broadwell that were starting to beat AMD, that Intel could get to a place where they beat Radeon at least and then push Nvidia out of laptops by just not letting their CPUs have enough PCIe lanes to. If you're Nvidia, you've got to think too, if Arc is on a knife's edge of being gone for good, us selling them GPU tiles, isn't that going to incentivize them to not take their own tiles as seriously and end that threat that we were worried about a decade ago for good? Like, think in terms of decades, not years. You know, AI generated fish. That's another reason, you know, to sell that to them. Like again, bringing up the Sony Microsoft idea. Obviously, now Blu-rays didn't become as big as DVDs, but like, what would you, if you're Sony, would you really say to Microsoft, no, you can't have Blu-rays because we want all the money? Or would you say, let's make sure Microsoft puts Blu-ray players in Xboxes so that HD DVD doesn't have a chance?
Or do you want the technology that you help develop in every one of your competitors' products?
Exactly, because and that's what's going on, I think, to a degree here as well. If you're NVIDIA, you know that the second Intel is using NVIDIA tiles for most of their APUs is the second that the Arc team is not seen as very seriously, and you don't need to worry about that threat ever again. Because I know it sounds so silly right now to think that NVIDIA was threatened by Intel, but Intel is still a juggernaut with tens of thousands of employees. They are still bigger in terms of how many people they have in their company than NVIDIA is. And they have the relationships with Dell and HP and Lenovo and blah, 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 that NVIDIA knows that AMD will not be able to push them out of any market for decades. But if Intel could ever pull a rabbit out of a hat with graphics, they could push NVIDIA out of their markets much more easily than AMD. And anything you can do to make it so that's never going to be a threat again, you should do. And so that's also why I think they would do that. All right. Let us now move on to story number 5. AMD R9 9950X3D2 and R5 7500X3D rumored for early 2026 launch. AMD is also planning their launches for early 2026 right now, namely Zen 5 X3D refreshes. The first one is a Ryzen 5 7500X3D. Yep, Zen 4. Being Zen 4, that reminds us of AMD's occasionally weird new Zen 3 SKUs they would release many years after Zen 3 was a last gen product. They always seem to keep trickling out Zen 3 products like the 5500X3D. Now it seems like that is happening with Zen 4 as more and more budget offerings keep dropping years after it has been replaced. The second product, though, coming out early next year, allegedly, is the long-awaited dual Vcache 16-core, with this channel exclusively leaked over a year ago, allegedly named by a Twitter leaker as the Ryzen 9 9950X3D 2. That and that dual Vcache chip could really be a coup for AMD. As far as the math we've done at Moore's Law said, we believe it could compete with Nova Lake in gaming performance, which could come in clutch for AMD since they might have delays for Zen 6, but we'll talk about that in the next story. Damn. 7500X3D, 9950X3D2. What do you think?
7500X3D will be a new, I think, potential like budget gaming king. Well,
not budget. 9950X.
7500 X3D. No, not
Okay.
9950 X3D.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm always excited to see when they decide to break out that 500 naming scheme, because that's a great
we
budget
almost never see anymore.
CPU.
Yeah, and if it's like $200, I keep going back, by the way, everybody, to James Pryor when I brought up i5s getting 6 big cores and 8 little cores should aim to release a 10 core. And he's like, if you want to kill Intel's 6 big core CPU, launch a 6 big core AMD one with no little cores in Vcache, because that's what people want. They don't need, if you look, the best selling i5s are often the ones without little cores or with less little cores. This is what people want there. And at $200, I mean, this is going to compete with Intel CPUs that cost twice as much. I know they're better at multi-threading, but not that many people need 20 cores.
Yeah, and like the 8 cores will be a bit better at gaming than the 6 cores, but honestly, in a lot of ways, the gains you get are theoretical for most people, I think, at least in that regard, at least in just gaming alone. And then, the 9950 X3D, not too much more to say that we haven't X3D2 that we haven't said already, but God, please just get it out there if you're going to get it out there.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the timing more in the next one, but I guess final thing to say, I think the math I did for the video where I talked about it a couple weeks ago basically stated that like it's going to be 200 watts allegedly. Boost clocks don't seem, maximum boost clocks don't really seem higher than its predecessor, the 9950 X3D. No 2 at the end. But at 200 watts, and I do believe these will be golden samples, I think in multi-threading it could boost another at least 5%, maybe 10%. And that's more than enough to stay ahead of Arrow Lake Refresh. And if they could keep it significantly lower price than Nova Lake, I think it's enough where people would go. In gaming, AMD matches Nova Lake with a 4 nanometer product, while Intel's using 2 nanometer, by the way. Maybe we just stick with AMD. In multi-threading, it depends what you mean. Most people do not need 40 cores, and most apps do not scale well past really 32 threads, sometimes 16 threads. In those scenarios, it might remain somewhat competitive with Nova Lake. And so if they can launch something at the beginning of 2026 that will be sucking up high-end market share the entire year before Nova Lake launches, and then when Nova Lake comes out, if and I do not say that this is definitely going to happen, but if Nova Lake fails to beat this chip by more than 5%, that would be quite a stinker on Nova Lake reviews of like this thing that launched basically a year ago with 4 nanometers still isn't beaten.
Yeah, and that will just turn into, if you're actually using it for productivity, you really need to go in and look at what performs better or what performs better than what.
Because like Adobe, you want multiple cores, but I think AMD charts that right now with an X3D chips or something because it doesn't need 16 cores.
So then that, and then I mean, I would assume this will end up being gaming, would end up being close to Gaming King within a couple percent or something, or some games really benefit a ton from it, and some,
Techno writes in, do you think that the new X3D parts use the revised Zen 5 CCD that's in Strix Halo rather than the one currently with Granite Ridge? No, there's no way. I mean, it literally has a different connection with its lower latency and more efficient. That's meant to be used with the Strix Halo IO die. So they would need an entirely new IO die, and I don't think they're going to bother with that with Zen 5 before Zen 6 comes out. So the answer is no. All right.
Nope.
Let us move on to the final story with story number 6. AMD Zen 6 delay concerns emerge. So here we go. For some time, I've been hearing worrying whispers from my sources at AMD. It just seemed like every month I would hear more suggestions that Zen 6 desktop could be pushed back in launch further and further. Although, interestingly, to this day even, nobody would ever directly say it could miss a 2027 launch, and so I would always hesitate to say that would happen. However, finally, earlier this month, TSMC presented a new node roadmap where N2X, the super high clocking variant of N2 that AMD is planning to use for their desktop products, as leaked in documents by this channel, by the way, to prove it. It seems like that N2X node that AMD would rely on is being pushed back to 2027, and thus could mean that they are going to have to push back the flagship Zen 6 desktop products, or maybe even the entire desktop release as well. Now, what this means is 3 scenarios are going on here at AMD. One of these 3 and because of this TSMC delay. And I want to go through each one. So here's the three options. It has to be one of these three. First of all, it could just be a renaming of the node. Maybe what was N2X got rolled into the N2P IP, and the new N2X is some even crazier, faster clocked version. In that case, maybe AMD won't need to do a delay to have their top chip hit around 7 gigahertz, and then there won't be any delay. So that's option number one. But then option number two is it could be that N2X is having issues. I mean, it sounds incredibly ambitious, and AMD would still want to use that for their flagship Zen 6 products. And in that scenario, AMD would indeed need to push back the Zen 6 desktop launch until at least mid-2027. On that note, by the way, I find it very interesting that the 9950X3D2 finally was finalized and getting prepared for release the same month TSMC announces delays to N2X. For people who don't know, the reason this is a big deal is because the dual Vcache Zen 5 products have been basically ready for half a year at least. Leo at Kit Guru even confirmed this publicly on the Broken Silicon podcast that he knows people that have them in systems, not even test systems, like engineering samples. He's known them since like Q2. Someone I talked to, another big tech tuber, said he thinks people have had them since Q1. Like they're out there already, basically, like engineering samples. So this could have launched sooner. So why now? I don't think it's Arrow Lake Refresh. I think it could be because they know they're pushing back Zen 6 half a year or something. Now that's option number two, though. Option number three would be maybe despite the node issues, AMD could just decide to launch N2P versions to desktop first. These CCDs, remember, Zen 6 will be used for TSMC 3 nanometer APUs, TSMC 2 nanometer laptop chiplets, and server chiplets that use N2P. And then N2X is only supposed to be for like high-end desktop and very special server products that they want to clock very quickly. Maybe a special edition laptop product that throws efficiency out the window as well. I don't know. But the point of the matter is there's no reason AMD couldn't launch a lower clocked version that just uses the same chiplets as laptop and server in 2026 easily. So maybe that's what they'll do. Maybe they will just launch N2P versions first and then save N2X variants for the next year, maybe along with a Vcache release on them as well. But one of those have to be true. You know, one of them is that they've renamed a node and there is no delay. One of them is AMD is going to have to delay the entire lineup. And one of them is maybe
they're moving the lineup around.
Yeah. Something. Either way, as we discussed in the previous story, the 9950X3D2 has a good chance of beating or tying Nova Lake in gaming, while offering a much lower manufacturing cost to AMD versus what Intel is doing with Nova Lake. And indeed, we find I've already basically said most of this as well. Just to reiterate one more time, though, desktop. This has nothing to do with Zen 6 Medusa's release cadence that I've already leaked or the Medusa Point. Their server Venice products are definitely going to come out in 2026. This is only, frankly, flagship desktop Zen 6 that we are talking about here. The laptop chips will be fine, which is good because they're going to need everything they can get to compete with Panther Lake and Nvidia N1X products next year in mobile. All right, Dan, what do you think?
I don't really know. Like, I hope they're not pushed back, obviously, but Zen, I don't know if there's a significant delay and Nova Lake meets expectations. I guess there might be a short window where Nova Lake is the new CPU to get for gaming. I don't know if I'll ever recommend it, but I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it because who knows, Nova Lake might just be really good as well. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like CPU offerings have been very good for a while. And
if you're interested in gaming, you've had enough.
Yeah, if there is a minor delay at the top end, I don't really think it matters all that much. And I think for AMD as like a company to continue performing well, I think them being able to get their laptops out on time is more important, which this doesn't really affect.
And that's what I wonder as well is what would make me lean towards the option of they just delayed the desktop lineup is, I mean, think about it. What they're launching Gorgon Point, possibly, as we'll get to in a second here, more budget Strix Halo APUs, both of those at the beginning of next year. And then by like, I think Q3, maybe 4, they're going to have Medusa Point. Then they probably want Medusa Halo and Halo Mini products coming out as soon as possible. I think it's conceivable they might make a decision to go, I mean, wouldn't Zen 6 desktop sell best with new graphics cards anyways? Aren't those going to be in 2027 anyways? We already have Gorgon Point, new Strix Halo products, Medusa Point, Venice server chips, and possibly if they can get it out sooner, Medusa Halo and Halo Mini products coming out next year to compete with Panther Lake, N1X, Nova Lake laptops. Yeah, well, those are probably in 27. Like, if you're AMD, you might go, maybe it's a blessing in disguise. Maybe we should just focus on nothing but mobile next year anyways, especially considering we know Nvidia and Intel products will be coming out in a few years, and we're going to want to focus on mobile. And then in 27, we can just launch Zen 6 desktop mega chips next to our new RDNA 5 graphics cards for do-it-yourself. One more thing is, it depends how good Zen 6 is going to be and how good the 9950X3D2 is going to be. If the 9950X3D2 is a surprise 10% across the board performance uplift that stuns us, right? Like, this is like a new stepping that like just boosts all cores to 5.6 gigahertz. And I don't know what else. I'm not saying I expect that, everybody, but if it turns out very, very good, and they think it will perform favorably compared to Nova Lake, at least in price performance, and on top of that, Zen 6 is like above 7 gigahertz. The IPC increase is the top of the estimate, like 15%. Like, I mean, we're not talking about a Zen 5% uplift here. You know, we're talking about something that might be the biggest uplift since Pile Driver to Zen 1 in gaming. You might go, as long as we're confident we can achieve that, I don't know that we need it this year.
The delay doesn't matter then,
because it'll come out and the people will just go, this is going to be a Zen 3 moment where Intel's behind for years to come. No one will care. Yeah. So I think that's the sort of decision AMD is making. But in the case that Zen 6 is going to be a complete home run, I think what you might do is just focus on laptop 2026 and then know that Zen 6 is going to be so goddamn good on desktop that it doesn't matter when it comes out, especially if you've already taken the entire desktop market with, you know, refreshed budget chips in the first half of the year. We'll have to see, though.
I mean, I think it is. I think if refreshes and new products like the X3D2 can tide them over, it is important to that equation, though, because I mean, you don't want Nova Lake to be dominant for too long, depending on how dominant Nova Lake ends up being. Yeah. Or if, I guess.
And, you know, who knows what they do as well. Like, maybe like Nova Lake comes out, it wins gaming by like 10%. I mean, if you're AMD, you can then just in December have a press conference where you announce it and say coming summer 2027 and just say 7 gigahertz, and then no one will buy Nova Lake anyways. You know, they have a lot of options depending on what's going on, but who knows? Maybe it's not delayed. I seems like something's up there. I think it's likely at this point, but let's just keep in mind too that was that part of the video I put out a couple weeks ago about Zen 6 delays was mostly analysis, right? I don't have, I guess the better way to put it, I still don't have a document saying Zen 6 desktop 2027. I don't. Yeah. So let's just keep that in mind. AI Generated Fish writes in, he says, with the price points we see from Strix Halo devices, I think Medusa Halo needs to reach 80 class performance in its top config or be significantly cheaper to get any traction. Well, first of all, and I got to say, Generated Fish, you are spamming the Strix Halo hate every episode. Needed by who? You? Because Strix Halo is a sales success for AMD that continues to sell out whenever they put these laptops at like $2,000, which is pretty as a huge success. Those laptops do, I'm telling you, they don't cost more to make than a 5060 laptop with some Intel Arrow Lake chip, and yet they are selling for the same price, or more. So let's be clear, AI Generated Fish. Strix Halo, underline this. Success. It's a success for AMD. It is not a failure. They have no trouble selling them. Having said that, in terms of like pricing, well, right now it's all AI developers buying them with 64 or 128 gigabytes. And I saw this leak that came out about a 388 on Passmark. Someone benchmarked an 8-core plus 40 compute unit combo. And also, I believe 6 United kind of let the cat out of the bag and mentioned this in their budget Strix Halo laptops coming out. So I told you guys this was going to happen. Strix Point, the 16 CU 12 core one. That one, you remember, Dan, it launched. It was like in $1,500 to $2,500 laptops.
Yeah.
And now it's in $900 to $1,500 laptops. Now that supply is caught up with demand. Strix Halo started in $2,000 to $4,000 laptops. I told you guys months ago, it will be in $1,000 to $2,500 laptops. You will start seeing it compete head to head with 5060 systems in price, and not just ridiculous 5060 systems like ones that cost $3,000 from Razer or something silly. Like I'm talking about, this will start competing with mid-range gaming laptops in price directly, and they will be better systems because they don't have VRAM issues. It's coming. And we're seeing evidence now with leaks of the 388. I believe there's a 392, which is a 40 compute unit 12 core. It's coming. And
those
these things
seem like awesome gaming chips potentially.
And this happens every time there's a release. This happens even with Intel often, where their APUs are expensive, then they become cheaper.
Yep.
Just stop freaking out, guys. It was, of course, sold to learn the pattern. Yeah. And once that happens, we'll see if people think Strix Halo is bad when you can get it when you're choosing between like a 4060 laptop or a 388 laptop that's just wildly better overall and has a much more consistent battery life. All right. Let us now move on to the wrap up. These are, of course, the stories that we thought deserved a mention, but did not warrant a 5 to 20 minute conversation. All right. First one, liquid cooled 1X player Strix Halo handheld has been announced. Dan, what do you think about a liquid cooled handheld?
Seems unnecessary to me, but fun idea. I don't know.
It also has an external battery like the GPD Win 5. So it seems like this is just a conclusion multiple companies came to, is you want a removable battery on the outside, and you want two like cooling funnels just going through the whole device. Because otherwise, if you can't cool it enough, it's not any better than a much cheaper chip. So another thing here, Intel 18A still shows issues. And I think, like I'm quoting here from Tom's Harder, they say Intel's pivotal 18A process is making steady progress, but still lags behind the competition. Yields only set to reach industry standard levels in 2027. That's 2 years from now, everybody. So I think this is worth pointing out because I keep seeing some people confused and arguing in the comments, the Moore's Laws Discord on Reddit about, Intel 18A is going fine. Guys, I think I did this rant recently, right, Dan? Like, TSMC 3 nanometer and 2 nanometer are not going fine. They're going phenomenally with record yields. When I say 18A is having issues, that's compared to its competition because you're always comparing them to the competition. And it's only good if you compare it to 10 nanometer, which is like the worst node in history. So, like, besides Samsung nodes, which basically don't exist sometimes. But, like, yeah, look, 18A is doing much, much better than Intel's 14 nanometer did. Certainly better than their 10 nanometer. But that's not enough to stop someone from just going to TSMC.
Yeah, I mean, if they're hobbling, but they're hobbling slightly less, they're still hobbling.
Or if they're walking just fine, yeah, you're walking. Usain Bolt's over there running right past you, though.
Yeah.
Like, walking, you can go faster than walking. All right, let me see here. So this one could have been a story, but Carbon Cry advised against it because it still seems like it's kind of being misquoted, and there seems to be some circular journalism going on here where whenever Xbox info comes out, people quote it and talk about Magnus, and then I look at it sometimes and go, oh, is that confirming my Magnus leak? No, they're 10 links deep into just requoting what I said a month ago. So we won't read it that way, but I do think we need to read this part of what Sarah Bond, the head of Xbox, president of Xbox, said. She goes, we are 100% looking at making things in the future. I hate how she said that, by the way. Looking at making things? What the hell does that? We have our next-gen hardware in development. Okay, that's a concrete thing. We've been looking at prototyping and designing. We have a partnership we've announced with AMD around it, so that is coming. What we saw with the Xbox Ally was an opportunity to innovate in a new way and to bring gamers another choice in addition to our next-gen hardware. But basically, it seems like in successive interviews, she's pretty much confirmed what I've leaked, that there's a hybrid console coming. And that it probably will backwards compatibility. But Carbon Cry does not think we should double down, because it seems like a lot of her quotes are being turned into way bigger things, and then it's just because they're assuming she's talking about things I've leaked. But it does seem to be that she's quoted, at least confirming a lot of the stuff.
Yeah, this to me just seems like I don't want to say damage control, but reassurance. Just like, yeah, we still plan on releasing next gen hardware, guys. I don't really know how much more to read into it than that, though.
Yeah, I agree. Sub Eagles writes in and says, it's all in the execution for Microsoft. They can promise us the world, in which they already have many times, including this week, apparently, but they have to really execute this time with Magnus, or it's really going to be Jover. I agree. I mean, you might even argue it already is Jover, though, wouldn't you say?
I think the hardware matters less than the software stack. Like, I almost don't care anymore. Microsoft just put out a good fucking game. You know, like that's what they need
That's
to do.
becoming
if
a
they
larger and
want
larger issue as well.
Xbox
Is that
to continue to be successful.
like a lot of their indie, I covered this in the recent loose ends. There's a massive issue going on with like every indie and AA game they release just underperforming, even AAA. And it's the way I said it is it just seems like they're all made by committee. Like they have, oh, that's a cool idea, and then it's shallow gameplay, and you're seeing this in release after release after release from them right now.
Yeah. Like I do think that's the most important. Like if you're looking long term for the importance of the brand, I mean, I know the hardware is going to come, but and I'm sure the hardware will be fine. I don't know. Like I don't unless there's some weird massive design flaw like the 360.
It looks good on paper to me so far.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just they need to move forward with software.
Yeah, you can't have what's happening with the Ally X right now, where they're like, we have our Windows optimized console mode that doesn't boost performance at all.
Optimized.
Jensen Wang, all will be NVIDIA, writes and says, maybe instead of pivoting to becoming a hybrid PC, Xbox can make the next Xbox a system which allows you to share a game library with up to 10 people, lend games to friends digitally, and have massive TV and sports integration, and then use AI to learn who is using it, so your personal settings will be available only on any Xbox console you use, plus the power of AI, and the cloud can enable 10x performance.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he puts in parentheses, I am making fun of the fact that all of these things were things that were promised by Xbox One that did not really pan out.
Everybody told me that cloud performance is going to be a big thing, Tom.
Do you remember that with Xbox One when they talked about we're going to use the cloud to handle the compute, meaning that this will be stronger than any competing console, and like no game used it. Like,
yeah,
what is it? Titanfall used it to power the AI. Little goons walking around, I believe, and I swear, what was one of it? Crackdown said they were going to use it for like physics, and I don't think they ended up doing it.
Okay,
there's too much lag. It doesn't make any sense. It's more expensive than just running it on your own console. Yeah, so I guess it is worth pointing out, though, until we see it in the device, whatever they promise. I mean, we have to see it to believe it at this point, because they promised so much in the past before. But I want to also take this as a chance to point out something, a concern I have, because recent things have emerged. I believe they were leaks, but of Sarah Bond, again, president of Xbox, like she's actually trying to save it. Like Sadia wanted to kill it. And she's like, well, I'm gonna more integrate Xbox into Windows. We're gonna make them inseparable. See, and like deep down, it's so you can't. She's thinking, so you can't kill the Xbox team. Mm-hmm. Like we're gonna have this link with Office somehow, and we're gonna have Copilot and AI, and that's why it has an NPU, from what I can tell now. And my concern is this. My concern is that her attempt to make Xbox more than just for gaming and for other things to save it is starting to sound, if that's what she's doing, just like what they tried with Xbox One, where they said, oh, well, they want to kill the Xbox division. Don't worry. It's more than just gaming. And then they went on stage and went TV, and announced a DVR Xbox right when everyone was switching to streaming, by the way. My concern is they're going to come out right with the AI bubbles popping and go Copilot, and it'll be Xbox One all over again. Now, am I saying that's going to happen? No, but boy, the way I've heard some recent rumors come out from other people that aren't me about Copilot integration, and that's what the NPU is for, I'm like, that sounds just fucking like what happened with the Xbox One, where they just said TV. If they just come out and say Copilot, it's going to be an Xbox One announcement moment all over again.
Yeah, that'll be a very... I hope it's not that. I if they're trying to turn it into a Copilot box, I mean, I don't even know what Copilot would do on an Xbox, but I guess there will be some BS that they figure out. I mean, they did have the entire stupid HDMI input too, so for the Xbox One, and nope, I don't know why that was there, but that was a big thing they advertised.
Because Dan,
about,
everyone wants to control their TV with the Xbox, even though we're all moving to streaming apps anyways, and we don't need that at all anyways. But and again, anyone who wants to, oh, you're being an Xbox hater, guys. No, I'm saying this so that if there's anyone at Xbox listening to this, do not do that, because it almost sounds like you're going to make literally the same mistake you'd made before, the one that you still haven't recovered from. Whatever you're doing with Microsoft integration, it just should mean a good Windows OS. Yeah. Do not turn the presentation into Copilot, or it's going to go just as badly as TV, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Also, Xbox full screen experience has showed up in a preview for the MSI Claw handheld, which I think is interesting. So already they're rolling out the special Xbox mode that doesn't actually seem done in the Ally X2 other handheld. So, and from one respect, that's good. And another way, it's like, oh, maybe get it working first.
I just hope that means that they're committed to actually getting it to be optimized at some point, and maybe the first iteration of it that we saw was just a little, with the Ally X, was just a little bit, I don't know, a little bit premature.
And then the final thing I have here is just something funny. Is I saw SailPoint CEO said that the markets are wrestling with an AI market bubble that may be the first bubble to not pop. Could you guys sound any more like the previous people that said it's different this time, which is a classic tell that a bubble is about to pop?
There are some other gems in there that I want to make sure, like, oh, there might be a short-term bubble, but there could be, but the long-term, we think it's going to work out great or something, or it's just like, we don't know what this is for, but we're figuring that out later. Like, that's what that reads to me. AI, man, I don't know. This, if you don't want AI to be a bubble, maybe actually demonstrate any value it has besides, I don't know, little cool things that I don't know if we should be using the energy of the European Union, or however much it uses at this point, to power, to destroying Facebook, to making terrible ads. Like, it seems like it has a very limited number of use cases, at least as it stands right now.
Yeah, but I just had to include that because I thought it was hilarious. If you want more talk about AI and economics, though, Ed Elson from the Prof G Markets podcast was the last guest. That episode started off slow, but it's actually starting to blow up a bit. And yeah, I mean, look, if you missed that one, and it seems a lot of people did when the first day it came out, don't miss that. It's a very thoughtful discussion with a very smart person from I think the #1 business podcast, actually, at least a couple months recently on Apple Podcasts or something. Couldn't have a better guest to talk about this stuff with that just came out a week ago. Check that out if you have not. By the way, and if you check out Prof G Markets, because we had Ed on, make sure you drop in the comments there that you come from Moore's Law is Dead, so that they can see the cross-pollination there, because they actually did follow me back on Twitter, and it does help the channel a lot, I think, when we build bridges to other communities. All right, let's see here. Final reader mails. Techno writes in, says, in the latest die shrink, which was 163, at the beginning you were taking the mick out of a British accent, yet said fall weather. If you want to take the mick out of Brits, do it proper. We do like saying proper, and say autumn. So I actually want to take this as a chance to address, if we're speaking in a British accent, it's not to make fun of British people. It's because we just thought it was fun to do that.
Well, it's fun. It's for me to make fun of British people.
It's for Dan to make fun of British people.
I do hate the British, to be clear.
There are some people who don't know sarcasm, Dan, so you might want to correct
that. Americans don't get sarcasm. It's the British that get it. So I'm sure they'll all register this as
actually, that is a good way to throw this on Techno's face. And if you can't realize that we're not being sarcastic, aren't you guys known for like the best sarcasm ever? I mean, it's basically you and the French are the ones trying to compete for who can be the most sarcastic. So, and you want to let the French win, British people? But like,
I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times people take a lot of the discussions we have like way too seriously.
I think we're expressly being goofy at points in the podcast, so I don't know how that happens, but
I just say that because I've noticed this, and it's probably because I don't know if you've noticed, Dan, there seems to be a lot of dark things going on there right now in the world, and I'm sure that's in no way contributing to people's stress or how they act online, but there's a lot of people I've noticed, like on Reddit, YouTube comments, like, still most videos get 95, 98% upvote, so it's like most people are fine. But there's a lot of people that I do think, guys, don't always be at each other's throats, and don't assume we mean something in a mean way, because we don't. I mean, I studied in England. We were just in Scotland this summer. I love the UK, so we're not taking the mick out of anybody. And by the way, where's that stiff upper lip? I'm not seeing it right now. All right, finally, Queasy feedback. We had a whole thing in the last Die Shrink where he talked about if Queasy is a word that makes you feel sick. And we said, because my girlfriend apparently hates that word. And so here's the feedback. Carbon Cry writes, and it says, Tom, let me get something straight. Are you saying your girlfriend gets queasy at the mention of the word queasy? Thinking emoji.
I suppose
yes,
so.
I suppose so. And the Forbidden Juice writes in and says, I've not heard of queasy being an icky word ever. I think it fits perfectly into the stages of feeling sick in the stomach. Queasy to me is lighter nausea, similar to how a buzz is a lighter level of alcohol intoxication. I don't know where we're going with this here, but I think the point is,
like, buzz is the less intense version of drunk. Like
right?
Queasy precedes nauseous, I guess.
Oh, okay. And so, yeah, like, does it, like, why would that be a worse sounding word than nauseous? Nauseous sounds bad to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know. I don't have any issues with queasy. I don't know. Maybe it's the quit. I don't know. I don't know what's gross about You got to ask your girlfriend why she thinks it's gross, Tom.
It's like moist.
Think that's the root of the answer.
I don't know if that's one for her, but I think you hate the word moist, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's mostly like it really promotes some kind of like gross, like lip smacking sounds. Like there's a reason I don't like it.
Really?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I think for the most part, it's just some people don't like how one word sounds.
Yeah.
I don't know. But we're now opening this up, not just from the people in the Moore's Laws and Patreon who have been avariceously discussing this since the Die Shrink came out last week, but please, everyone else in the Moore's Laws community on YouTube, tell us, does queasy make you feel queasy? Have you ever met someone that did not like that word in the same way some people don't like the word moist? We would like to know.
Yeah.
All right. And on that non-gaming hardware note, that is going to do it for this episode. As always, people, please remember, double check that you're subscribed to the Moore's Law is Dead YouTube channel. Ring the bell button. Give us hype points. Those exist now, I guess. Like the video. Comment down below. Share the video with as many people as you can. And also make sure to check out the Moore's Law is Dead Patreon. $1 tier. Just had another podcast drop for them. They get an episode a month, a catalog of episodes. The $2 tier, you get access to the Discord, get questions for guests and Die Shrinks, and the ability to hear the entire back catalog of hundreds of Die Shrink episodes. And then, of course, higher tiers get early ad-free Broken Silicon, free questions on live streams, a few other bonus things as well. There's tons of extra content out there for whatever you can afford, which could just be $1 a month. Yeah, we can't do this without our patrons. Really, we can't anymore. YouTube revenues, it's basically gone. So, like, if you like the channel, you have to join the $20 tier. Like, join. That's for the people who have the extra means or want to support us. I mean, just joining the $1 tier. Like, if 1% of the Moore's Law is Dead listeners all joined the $1 tier off of YouTube, we would be set to be able to expand content more, have higher quality content, and worry less about advertisers too. But yeah, just thought I would give that spiel. Otherwise, everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Dan, any final words?
I don't think so.
Have a good week, everybody.
Goodbye.
This podcast was brought to you by the YouTube channel and website Moore's Law is Dead. Moore's Law is Dead and Broken Silicon are trademarks of their creator, Tom. That guy is me, and I am indeed the creator, editor, writer, and showrunner of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, videos, articles, and other media. However, it's not just me. Moore's Law is Dead is a team, with Broken Silicon co-hosted by my brother Dan. audio editing by Gerard Cortez, renders being done by the industrial designer Jean-Philippe Clermont, and special assistance is also provided by Carbon Cry and Carrie No Sugata as well. Find all of our information at www.mooreslawsdead.com on the About/support page in the event you do want to hire me for consulting work, hire Gerard for audio work, hire Jean-Philippe for industrial design work, or you're interested in working with Carbon Cry or Carrie No Sugata as well. You can also find our long-term sponsors on that page if you want to show them some love for putting food on our tables. Or you can also mail us some love. You can send letters or hardware donations to the following address: Moore's Law is Dead, P.O. Box 60632 in Nashville, Tennessee, zip code 37206. Although, to be honest, the best way to show Moore's Law is Dead some love is to support us on Patreon. Patrons are what makes Moore's Law is Dead content truly possible. Every month, and really every day, depending on who you're talking about, me, Gerard, Dan, and Jean-Philippe are working tirelessly to provide a steady stream of content that we could not keep doing unless we knew the work was possible without being reliant on sponsors dictating every little thing we put out. Don't get us wrong, we love our sponsors, but we love directly working for you, our fans, much more. If you have any extra money, even a couple free dollars a month, consider supporting us directly on Patreon. Those couple of monthly dollars will get you access to the exclusive podcast Die Shrink, voting on subjects of future podcast episodes, the ability to ask guest questions, and of course, access to the Moore's Law is Dead Discord full of like-minded people who I am sure would love to meet you. I am one of them. Additionally, higher tiers get access to early, ad-free episodes of Broken Silicon, the ability to ask questions in all Broken Silicon episodes and Loose Ends live streams ahead of the recording, and the entire back catalog of Moore's Law is Dead podcasts, in addition to having thanks in the credits of videos and podcasts depending on the tier, with other perks available as well. And hey, if you cannot afford to support us directly every month, please do share Moore's Law is Dead videos and podcasts with friends and family, and on social media and websites like Reddit, and give Broken Silicon a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or your preferred podcast app of choice. All of this does really help us so much. But like I said, this podcast would not be possible without the patrons directly providing predictable and reliable support every month. And so now it is time to give a personal thanks to the greatest of the fans. The following supporters are at the 10 gigahertz or higher supported levels: Brad Medlin, Drita Full, Z Jits, Daniel D, Nicholas Buckner, Aaron Close, Jan Rauner, Toka, MJB1, Daniel Hyde, GZ Ziggy, SNES Chalmers, Jerome Ferrier, Valkamalev, Compressed AI Blocks, Jensen Wang, Al Shobi Nvidia, Gregorius Acker, Sarcastro, Chris Rich, Evan Dingle, Hal Booma, Shredbird, Semi Malas, Curry King 3, Krisen Thenos, The Boss Haas, Tommy, Jonathan, Jake Dude 23, Jake Martin, Zlicky, Gamers Unite, Amiable Chief, Meat and Pork, Ian Clifford, I Should, Tim Robb, Travis Gooding, Zoot Suit Taylor, Mads, Patty Cakes, Greg, Michael McGee, Stephen Coates, Mark Mitchell, Win Wang, James Anderson, Mark Raidmaker, Salty Internet Pirate, Henry Zhang, Wesley Sager, Cameron, Michelle Pell, Hexapuma, Teak Autumn, Reginald Ari, Winstar, Little Germany, James I. Rader, Shay, Milton, Brett Jones, Chuck Glidden, Stephen Dick, McDaffie, Justin Bussell, Austin Haggerty, Jofit, Brian Scanlon, Harlan, Jordan Swin, Jensen Angima, Slush Bob, Brian Wright, The Forbidden Juice, RB Racer, Alex Vega, Michael Cozy, Crystal Joe, Solarize 80, Elbergun, Kikom, Matthew Cassell, Sprutnik, Brian P, Hudat42, Cornster671, Penta Winta, Omega Doge, John Wick Boomstick, Hugo, Ander Kiwi, Mr. Tiger, Penguins Love AI, Porcelain, Oats, Nick Zuzmania, Dan M 1988, Smash Axley, AR Soldier, Kareem Al Mazuri, Bespoke Exclamation Point, Rye Hill Cheap Bulls, Fred Berger, Kevin Kuntz, Manolis Rag Kuzis, Armand Vakatura, Jonathan Harris, Callan Reichel, Kainush, Kagani, Johnny Tran, Zybir, Ahmed, Truna, Bjorn Toft, Josh, Arche, RK0, Penguins from NKVD, and Angel of Cake. And of course, thank you to Sahara for the music.